with Elliotte Friedman. He's a Canadian sports journalist, hockey reporter for Sportsnet. He's covered everything, including the Toronto Raptors, north of the border. Elliotte, welcome to the show.
You know, I was going to say, guys, where I live right now, you say bad things about Masai Ujiri, and they're going to riot around you.
Actually, Elliotte, I love Masai Ujiri. He became a friend. I love the job he did. He did a great job here with Denver, and from what I can see, he's doing a pretty good job with Toronto.
And he has a real extensive vocabulary, Elliotte. That's what I like about him.
He's smarter than a lot of us, that's for sure.
Masai was one of the genuinely good people that I've ever been around. I liked him. He would call me all the time. He called everybody all the time. He probably called you all the time, Elliotte. He's very media savvy.
He doesn't call me that much. I don't do much basketball anymore.
Yeah. Well, he probably still calls you. It doesn't matter. Once you're on his rotodial, what is it? Rolodex. He's going to call you all the time. Let's talk hockey, because I'm a little, as much as I like Joel Quenneville and as much respect as I have for the Blackhawks, and I think they're one of the loudest arenas and got the most faithful fan base in the league, I really thought Toronto would stretch this series out to 7 games, and I'm a
Tampa.
What did I say?
Toronto.
Toronto couldn't stretch this series out to 2 games.
We'd just be satisfied with a playoff berth up here.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit surprised. Are you surprised that this has a possibility of ending in six games with Chicago winning?
Honestly, guys, like, you've seen everything Chicago's done in the last 6 years. Would you ever bet against them?
No.
Like, you know, like I live in the East. I see Tampa more in person than I see Chicago, as much as I watch them on TV. And I'm with you, Woody, in the sense that I really thought Tampa had a chance in this series, but I'm never going to sit here and say it doesn't surprise me if the Chicago Blackhawks do anything. I think you could make a real argument that Tampa's been the better team for most of this series. I think if not for about, I don't know, 10 minutes over 2 games of really poor play, Tampa could have swept them in 4 games. I'm sure the Lightning players are all sitting, talking to each other and saying, how are we down in this series? But that's what the Chicago Blackhawks do. They find a way. They have some guys who've got a higher level than anybody else. And the fact that they're sitting here tonight with a chance to wrap up the Cup, I don't think they've been the better team most of this series, but they always find a way to make things happen.
Well, and Elliotte, it's not just the Blackhawks stars. I mean, it's the role players. They do such a great job getting the role players to contribute. A great job with the salary cap. I remember after that first Cup, they let 4 or 5 guys, though, integral pieces of that team, yet they keep coming back and they keep winning. Yeah,
they do, and it's funny. Like, we're all watching the NBA Finals now, and we're seeing one of the great individual performances that we've all ever seen, even though Cleveland's going to be in trouble to win that series. And you look at the NHL now, and you've got so many good star players, but this is a league now where the good star players, it's my one complaint about the NHL now. If you look at the minutes played of the star players in hockey, they're playing less than ever, particularly the forwards. It's a fast game now. You need depth. You need a really good third line. You need a contributing fourth line. You know, you guys, when you remember, you know, when the Avalanche were winning their Stanley Cups, your fourth line didn't play much, and your offensive stars hogged all the time. That happens a little bit, but much less than it used to. And I think depth is so important, but if there's one thing I would change about hockey, it's I wish we could see the days where the forwards were playing 22, 23, 24, 25 minutes, because those are the best skilled guys, and those are the guys we pay to see.
Well, that is an incredible, excellent observation, because I had really spent much time. I keep thinking about the defensemen who are playing like 8/10 of the game. So, I mean, they're great defensive.
Yeah.
Do you think that when I thought you were talking about that Tampa Bay should have been 3-0, and they gave away that first game because they sat back and let Chicago
prevent
get
defense,
into it. And they never really quite recaptured what they had in the first game, it seems to me. And am I right, Elliotte, that no time during this series has a team had more than a 1-goal lead?
That's true. That is true. It's through 5 games, it's never been more than 1.
Well, that would seem to me that's got to be a Blackhawks advantage. When you've got a high-scoring team, high-octane, younger legs, and you're letting Chicago hang around, that's, as you mentioned earlier, the Blackhawks are going to beat you doing that.
I think the one thing I think, though, is I think in most places I thought Tampa has carried the play. like they were the better team, I thought, in Game 2. I was really surprised at how good they were in the first game in Chicago. And in Game 4, it took them a while to get going. And then, the last 15 minutes, the Blackhawks just held on for dear life to a one-goal game, and Stamkos had a shot that just went wide off an empty net. And you're right, even though it's been really tight, I think for the most part, I've liked the way that Tampa's played. There haven't been too many minutes where Chicago has completely imposed its will over long periods. But, like we talked about, when they absolutely have to, it's amazing. Those guys, they just elevate to a level and they get themselves there.
He's Elliotte Friedman. He's the lead hockey analyst for Sportsnet up in Canada. And this portion of the big stuff brought to you by Grand Prix Motorsports. Elliotte, tickets for the game in Chicago tonight are going for a real pretty penny, or as you might say up there, a pretty loony.
And that
as much
pretty loony.
As much as $1,500 on the secondary market, and standing room only as much as $1,000. Is this game going to be worth that much money?
Well, if you're a sports fan, like the one thing is that Chicago's won 2 cups in the last 6 years, but they haven't won at home. They won their first one in Philadelphia. They won their second one in Boston. They haven't won at home since 1938. And if you're a real diehard Blackhawk fan, first of all, before this stretch, you hadn't seen a Stanley Cup since 1961. So you're sitting there and I understand if the Blackhawks are in your blood, you might want to see this. I'll tell you guys a story. So I got married in 2009, and my honeymoon was over the Winter Olympics in 2010. The station I worked for then in Canada did not have the rights to the Olympics, so my wife and I took our honeymoon to Hawaii during that time. Well, Canada went through the hockey, and we were flying back on the Saturday after the day after the semifinal. And Canada won its semifinal, and they were going to play in the gold medal game on the Sunday. So we flew back on the Saturday, and my brother-in-law and I decided that we were going to go to the game. And we looked online, and we found some opportunities. And I won't tell you how much we paid, but we paid about that much for tickets. Because, we said it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You could see Canada win the gold medal on home ice. Why not? And we did it. So I'm not going to rip anybody else when I guess I was just stupid enough to do the same thing. And there was a flight involved in that, too.
And I appreciate you got married, and I congratulate you for that it's lasted that long. But if I'd been you, I'd have stayed another week in Hawaii for that money.
Unfortunately, Woody, I had to come back because I had to go back to work. But, she's a wonderful lady. But when I told her, okay, I'm coming back from the honeymoon and I'm going to Vancouver from the hockey game, I will admit there was a little bit of a stink eye there.
Sorry that you've been divorced now for 4 years.
Hey, Elliotte, we really appreciate your time and enjoy the game tonight. Where can people find you on Twitter?
My Twitter name is Friedge, which is the beginning of my last name. So it's Friedman. Instead of Friedman, it's Friedge, Friedgehnic. I figured you guys were calling me today to talk Ryan O'Reilly.
Well, we can do that. Yeah, there are rumors that the Avalanche are going to start dangling Ryan O'Reilly to try and get some defense in return. What are you hearing?
Well, I was one of the people who was talking about that on the weekend. I do believe that's the case. The toughest thing is, and I do respect this about the Avalanche organization, they're pretty quiet. They don't really like to tip a lot of what they're talking about. But I have heard that, he's an unrestricted free agent in a year, and you guys know the history. I'll tell you this, he is a tremendous player. I think there's a lot of teams that look at him and say, boy, he would be a nice piece on our team. The one thing I haven't been able to determine is if a club that trades for him will have the opportunity to speak to him in advance to see if they can work out a contract extension. He's eligible to get one on July 1st. So I would assume that's the case, but I don't know that for sure. And like you guys just said there, the word is Colorado's looking for defense. I assume left shot because Barry and Johnson are righties, but if some guys tell me that's not necessary, Elliotte. But like you guys mentioned, we're hearing it, and I know the couple of teams around here, Toronto and Buffalo, I think they'd both really like to have O'Reilly.
Well, Pierre Lacroix always kept everything in his mouth. He never would say anything.
Very close to the vest.
And Elliotte, Joe Sakic, he's never uttered more than 2 sentences his whole life. So.
Elliotte, do you think this is a good move by the Avalanche, or do you think they can maybe pick up some defense in the draft or free agency and not have to get rid of Riley?
It's not a great year for free agency, I'll tell you that. So I don't know if there's a lot of solutions there. Look, from a pure on-ice perspective, I think they'd love to have him. And there's no question about it. But we all know what's happened in the past with some of their contracts. And eventually you get to this point and you have to make an honest decision. Can he or are we able to re-sign him? And what I think this is saying is that the Avalanche really doubt that. And sometimes you don't make trades for hockey reasons. You make them for business reasons. And unfortunately for Colorado, because I think they really like the player on ice, they may have to do this.
Hey, Elliotte, we really appreciate your time and enjoy the possibly the final game of the series tonight.
All right, guys. Have yourselves a great night. Thanks a lot.
All right, Elliotte Friedman, hockey reporter for Sportsnet. That portion of the big stuff brought to you by Grand Prix Motorsports, your source for the original motorcycle, Indian motorcycle. So check out the newest line of Indian cycles at Grand Prix Motorsports. They're located on County Line and Santa Fe. Take a look at Shannon, who is looking great riding that Indian motorcycle.